Hey, what's going on, YouTube?
Hi.
Today we are going to do an oil change on my SC430. This is my daily driver, so I put quite a bit of miles on it, and today my son is going to help because he is a great helper. So, oil change basics. We got to raise the car, right? And then we've got to secure it, make sure it won't fall on us. And then we'll drain the oil pan, change the oil filter, put the bolt back in the oil pan, make sure we put a new oil filter on, make sure everything is tight or hand tight, and then refill with oil. The SC430 takes 5.5 quarts, so a little bit over one of those big jugs, which is 5 quarts. So I choose to run a synthetic blend, and the reason I do that is just because it's kind of inexpensive compared to a synthetic. I have a tendency to change my oil every 3,000 to 5,000 anyway, even though some of the oils are marketed as 100,000 miles, just change your filters type of thing. So I go with a slightly cheaper oil, but I do the change intervals a lot closer together. So any, I think, added benefit of a higher quality oil I may not see anyway. So first things first. All right, Dean, let's go over here. So underneath the car, there are pinch welds for the car where you can jack up. They're kind of like fortified spots. And I don't know if you can see, but here's a notch and there's a notch. And that's normally where we put our stock scissor jack. But we have a floor jack, and I always use these hockey puck things with a cutout so it won't damage the metal there. And it kind of, you just got to line it up, make sure it fits nice and tight so you get a kind of uniform jacking point. And we're going to jack this side up, and then we're going to put it on top of a rhino ramp. And normally I would drive up a rhino ramp, but I have a slight coating on this floor. It's kind of a clear, so the rhino ramps really don't stick whenever you drive on them. They kind of push back, and that's just not safe. So my son and I, we are going to raise the car up, put it on stands, and we will get right back with you. All right, everybody, so we got the car up. We are on a rhino ramp, and I think I'm just going to do one side. The drain bolt on the oil pan sits to the left, and if I jack up one side, maybe it'll drain more oil. Plus I'm feeling a little lazy, so I have it on a rhino ramp, and I'm going to support it with a jack just in case. And what else are we going to do?
So these are called wheel stops.
Okay.
So in case, you know, like if the car is secured and everything, in case it isn't secured and it rolls,
okay,
you put these wheel stops. If it's moving forward, you can put it right here.
Okay, so this helps stop the car from rolling just in case?
Yeah. And
okay.
Then you can put one back here if it's moving backwards, and make sure the parking brakes are on.
Okay, so the parking brake locks the rear wheels or holds them in a standard position, and then the wheel stops, like my son was saying, is just basically a wedge, and just in case you get a rocking motion forward or back, it's not going to fall off the ramp. So we've got a few precautions in the way, and we will get back after we pop the hood and get ready for some of the other stuff. Forgot to tell you guys, so we did the wheel stops, and I figured, hey, why not show you the parking brake on this car. So it is a third pedal. So Dean, can you squish it all the way down? Squish it all the way down. Push, 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 push. Okay, so now we've fixed the rears, so they're stationary, plus we have wheel stops. The car's up on a rhino ramp, which supports up to, I think, 3,000 or 6,000 pounds. And then we have a jack just in case. So we are going to pop the hood, so let me get back under there. And I believe this car takes a 5W30. Here in Texas, I run a 1030 because it never really gets that cold. And I believe it'll be a 14mm bolt underneath. We have a oil drain pan, which will catch all of the old oil, the oil filter. We've got an OEM one over there. I've got to get through the RX-7 to get to an oil filter. But yeah, we will update as we go. Thank you for watching thus far. Okay, so lefty loosey or righty tighty? What are we trying to do?
We're trying to loosen the bolt so we can get oil out.
Right, so we need to go left or right?
Left.
Okay, so that means we need to push, right? Correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you got one hand here. You never unloosen a bolt until it's all the way on, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got it? Okay, now pull or push. You got it? Okay, hold it. Okay, you feel it? You feel it move?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, there you go. So go ahead and pull the ratchet back. Pull the ratchet back towards you. Stop. Let go. You use it like a ratchet now, Dean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see? You got it? Okay. You feel how loose it's getting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we got to stop. Okay, now we got to get the pan underneath the bolt. So now you got to guess where it's going to fall. Okay? Going to fall there? It's pretty good?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so use your hand to unscrew it. You got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You gotta make sure it's gonna fall underneath.
Put the bolt in the
Yeah, so when the oil comes out, it's just gonna fall out, and go ahead and leave the bolt in there too, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about any of that stuff. Just make sure you pull your hand away, okay? It's coming. Get ready.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes out, just drop it and move your hand, okay? Oh, almost. Real quick, real quick, real quick. Real quick, real quick. There you go, perfect. Okay?
Ah, it's hot.
It's a little warm?
Yeah, it's really warm.
Okay.
My
All right.
left hand was a little hurting from the ratchet.
Oh, it was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I put my gloves.
Okay, so let's get out from underneath the cart.
Okay. Oh.
All right, and then pull this one off. Wait, don't fling it. Good. This one out. Okay, good. Okay, so as you guys just saw, my son was able to break loose the bolt. The oil is draining. Now we got to do the oil filter. So if you follow my finger, this is where the oil pan is. Slightly to the right, there's that plastic undercover tray thing. And there's 2 to maybe 3 10mm bolts that you undo, and that flap can fold down. The oil filter sits kind of like perpendicular. It sits about this way to the oil pan. And I've got a few oil filter caps, and this has been my saving grace numerous times. So this is an adjustable one, and most of the time whenever you talk about universal parts or one size fits all, you kind of get not the best of both worlds, but kind of like jack of all trades, master of none. But for some reason this has always bailed me out whenever I've got an odd shaped or one's just being stubborn. I'd like to own as many caps as possible, but that's just not feasible. So this universal tool has bailed me out numerous times. Okay everyone, so one big thing that I think needs addressing is putting this bolt back in the oil pan. So I think everything's made, the pan and the threads are made out of aluminum, and so it's relatively easy to cross thread. And what cross threading is, when you put the bolt in and it's not seated properly and you start turning and tightening it, you're cutting new grooves, and when you do that, it may not seat properly when it gets tight. So always keep in mind, and this goes for any bolt, it comes out easy. I'm sure it went in easy. So never be in a rush. Take your time, make sure it seats in properly, get a thread or 2 started, and then it should be easy to spin in. So everything's still dripping right now. My son needs to go eat breakfast, so he can't help. But I'm gonna wipe this oil. I removed the old crush washer. I've got a new one on the bolts, and I'm gonna reinstall it. And like I said, take my time. Don't rush. Make sure the bolt sits nice, and I'm using very little effort to spin it in, and you should get all the way there. You should get like 90% of the way tight before you have to use a ratchet, and so you shouldn't have any resistance when putting a bolt in. So there you have it. There's that. So I'm going to tighten that bolt and get ready for refill, and I did loosen the oil filter, but I need to move this tray over before I completely take it off, and I'm going to try and do that here in a second. Let's scoot this over. Okay, and then the oil filter, and I know the camera works crappy, but trust me, it's right next to the oil pan. Make sure you've got your pin under it, unscrew it, you can hear it, and let it go. Lefty loosey. There you have it. Hey guys, so similar note about the oil filter, you can see, and I know this is real basic, but these are threaded as well. So we need to make sure that when this goes in, it screws in relatively easy, and it's just that last maybe half turn, quarter turn with your hand that you got to use some oomph. So I've heard it before, and I totally agree that before you install the oil filter, that this O-ring here, this is going to be sitting up against metal. You're going to thread it in, right, tighten it, and it's going to sit against metal. So this rubber O-ring, you want to lubricate it with the oil that you have to make sure that it seals properly. It's kind of like a lubricated seal. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little bit of the new oil. All right. And then run that around. And you should be good. Mentioned before, this is the older style canister rather than just the media, but for like the Highlander, and I'm thinking the LS, you want to fill the oil filter with the oil so on startup it has movement, it doesn't necessarily start dry, and that could just be a myth, but it doesn't hurt. Why not? What's the difference? So, but unfortunately with this, since this does sit like horizontal, putting any oil in will be pretty tough. It'll just fall out. So let's just go ahead and reinstall this, retighten the oil pan bolt, and then we're going to lower the car, make sure it's level before we refill with the oil, because measuring the dipstick, we don't want it lopsided, and then we'll get a false high or false low. Okay. So we are buttoned up down here. Everything's wiped down, and it's always a good idea to wipe things down. For the next time we do a oil change, you can identify if there is going to be a leak or not. So redid the plastic thing here, snugged up the bolt on the oil pan, and it doesn't take a lot of force. Nothing here takes a lot of force. Just one quick turn with maybe half mite or quarter mite, you should be good. And I am going to lower the vehicle or raise the vehicle to get the ramp out, then lower it and get the car on semi-level ground and go ahead and refill the oil. So I'll be back here in a minute. Okay guys, so the car is back down, level surface ish, and what we need to do now is pull the engine dipstick out, wipe down any residual oil that's on it so we get a good start for our reading. So here we are. Nothing on it anymore. And then I'm doing everything one-handed, so I'm putting things in weird places. We're gonna put this oil cap here. I can wipe that down. Reinsert the oil dipstick. And it should just be nothing, because we just drained all the oil. All right, nice and clean. Nothing there. And so I'm going to refill. The owner's manual says 5.5 quarts, so I'll probably go with 5 or maybe 4.5 and see where we're at, just in case I didn't drain all the oil. And I will get back with you guys. But I was thinking that maybe I should do a review of the SC430, because I know it got a really bad rap with the Top Gear guys, or the original Top Gear guys, saying this is like the worst car ever made. However, it's a pretty good daily. So yeah, anyway, I digress. Let me get back to work and I will film when I'm done. I thought I'd take a minute to say why I use Valvoline. Besides the fact that it's relatively inexpensive, that type of thing, it's made in America, or at least that's what's advertised on the bottle, so that's kind of a big deal to me. Also, these come with a sealed snap ring, and sorry if the audio is bad, there's a fan here, but this is a real nice touch. A lot of the Mobil 1 stuff I get at Walmart, they come and the cap is really hard to turn. That safety seal ring never comes out right, so this is super cool to make sure your oil is sealed, hasn't been tampered with. It's got a nice little spout, and again, you know, oil has a certain standard to meet, so in my book they're pretty much all the same. Now if we're talking about racing applications and certain car types, like my RX-7 takes the Castrol, and I go with dyno oil because I have to, because of the oil metering pump and stuff like that. For the most part, for I think a lot of modern cars, if you get any of the major brands, Valvoline, Mobil, Royal Purple, Amsoil, I think just for daily use, that's fine. If you're talking about racing applications, then of course, you know, you can delve into that a bit more. But I feel really comfortable using Valvoline, and that's not like a plug or anything. Obviously, I'm not sponsored. I can barely sponsor myself. But yeah, for anybody who has questions about why I choose this oil, it's just because of the things I just listed. I don't want to repeat myself because I do that a lot. So anyway, back to refilling. I have my funnel in, dipstick out. I'm going to pour the 5 quarts in, and I've got always like kind of a remnant jug, and so I'll pour whatever I got left in there to top it off and make sure I'm where I need to be. So I'll be back here in a minute. Alright guys, so I put a little over 5 quarts through the funnel, and I'm going to check. And again, that dipstick's already wiped off, and we're going to go all the way in. Again, doing this one-handed, so sorry if it looks like I'm super clumsy. Pull it up. And I don't know if that translates on camera, but we're pretty much there. We're right maybe a 1/8 of an inch below full. I don't know if that catches, but I am happy with that. Doesn't take much to make me happy, so that's good. Now I am going to put this back in, put the oil cap back on, wipe everything down, and then I'm going to start the car. So when you start the car, what you want to look for, you want to sit inside for a minute. You want to make sure that no low oil light comes on, and I'm sure every vehicle, regardless of what you got, will have some kind of low oil light indicator. And then listen for noises in case your sensor is broken and you don't hear anything. You hear like a weird knock or hear oil spill, and then after maybe about 30 seconds of running, you want to come out, look under your car, and make sure that everything that you tightened up is tight. You don't want everything spilling all over the floor. So let me do that now with you guys. So I got the oil cap tightened, right? Because that's what we took off. Put it back on, put the dipstick back on. I remember I tightened the oil pan bolt and the oil filter, which is over there. So only 4 things I really touched. I feel comfortable. And all I'm going to do is start the car and monitor it right now. So I do have my maintenance required light on, and that's just because that's my reminder for doing the oil change. So I need to reset that, and I'll go over that procedure here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and release the parking brake because we're back down on the ground. No weird light, no weird sound, so I feel good about it. And now we're going to go underneath the car, make sure I don't see any weird drips. Everything sounds normal. Not great, but par for the course. Underneath, no weird puddles or anything like that. because if you've got a leak, if you didn't tighten something, it wouldn't take long to show, so you'd know rather quick. So what I like to do here is, while the car runs, I normally just clean up all my oil. I pour all, the nice thing about having a 2-can system where I've always got like one with a little bit in it, is that whenever I use up the one with barely anything in it, I can put that oil in there and then dispose of it properly. And then I got, you know, a third of a jug here to use on my next oil change. So I've always got kind of a dump container to take to AutoZone or O'Reilly Advanced Auto Parts. It's really important you dispose of your oil properly for environmental purposes, and you're just doing your part, you know? So we're looking pretty good here so far. Let it run. I might wash the car. After I wash the car, I'll check the oil again, and that should wrap it up. So I'll go over the reset procedure here in a second. All right guys, so I'm done cleaning up and I need to reset the light. So it's a relatively simple procedure. So we want to turn the car to the on position. That's 2 clicks. We want to make sure that our tripometer is on the odometer, right? So you got trip A, trip B, and then odometer, right? So we're going to turn it off. I'm going to hold down the reset button. See my finger there in the lower left, and turn it back onto the second click. Right, you see those hash marks count down? That should be the resetting of your maintenance light. So another cool thing, and I think some people may mistake, is that in the system that you have here, the factory nav, you can go to, I think it's info, there you go, and you have a maintenance button. Now this has nothing to do with that light on your gauge cluster, so this is just for your reminder. This will just help you. So again, I do my oil changes anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 miles. Usually it's the 5,000 because I don't have a lot of time. So I can just go ahead and reset everything. Oop. So it'll have a little reminder. So all I did was go into what I want to be reminded about and reset it. Reset, and yes. So now everything in your kind of infotainment will have a memory, and then your gauge cluster should be cleared. And I think that's it. And I guess let's just test it to make sure that maintenance light doesn't come back on, which it doesn't. So a neat thing that I do too, and I think this is the easiest, is that I don't think a lot of people use their tripometer. If they do, it's mainly just one. So for my trip B, or the second one, I always clear that out whenever I do an oil change. So I'll have my odometer, and then I'll calculate my gas mileage, but then I can always just go to the second trip and see how many miles are on my oil change, because I never really touched that. I never reset it. So now I've got an active counter for how many miles I've got on a particular oil change. So this is it. And you know what? I think I am going to wash the car, and I might make a video or a review of SC430 ownership. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys following along. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Any questions or anything like that, feel free to do it. And there will be more. Thanks guys. Good luck.